Good evening, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. Tonight it is Tuesday evening, October 26th, 7 p.m. Central Time here. We're going to be going over the Waiver Wire Report. We'll take a bunch of questions from the chat room, and we'll just touch on some of the most important news. We got a football game on Thursday night. There's a couple news pieces for that, but man, Aiden gets right to the point. What's up with Desean Watson? They just put out a couple reports on the situation of the potential trade with Desean Watson, and it sounds like the Miami Dolphins are very, very close to doing so. This is the blurb here. The Houston Chronicle has reported on Tuesday that the Dolphins and Texans have agreed to terms on a trade for QB Desean Watson, but the Dolphins want clarity on his legal issues before going through with it. So to me, it sounds like on paper they have some kind of agreement. I don't know if that means Tua Tagovailoa is involved or what. This is purely speculation, but November 2nd is the deadline here, so we still have a full 7 days. Things could go down next week. I don't know if they're going to go down this week, but we'll see here. This is a moving situation, but it sounds like we are probably going to see Desean Watson play at some point this season. Who knows? But exciting times here if you were able to pick up Desean Watson in Superflex or 1QB leagues. We might have him eligible to play coming up soon, so we'll see what happens there. Good evening to Aiden. Good evening to Harris. Good evening, Justin. Who's your ad of the week? Let's take a peek here. We'll go to the Waiver Wire Report on thefantasyfellowship.com. And it depends on what you need. I think if you are in need of a quarterback, I'll come back and I'll circle back to some of these injuries and the previous injuries and whatnot. But if you need a starting quarterback this week, I think there's two really good options. It's probably Kirk Cousins at home against Dallas or Carson Wentz at home against Tennessee. Those are my preferred two guys that I trust. If you need a running back this week, I'm assuming the majority of these guys in bold are already gone. But people kind of were jumping off ship of Kenneth Gainwell here, and with Miles Sanders likely not going to play with his ankle injury, Kenneth Gainwell is probably the guy here that I'm trying to get. It's a pretty good matchup against Detroit. So I think if you need someone to just plug in and start as a running back too, it's probably Kenneth Gainwell this week for running backs. But one thing that I noticed is this week, the receiver list is extremely juicy. There are some guys coming back from IR. That's Jerry Judy, Michael Gallup. We got some guys getting healthier. That's Kadarius Toney. If he was let go, I'm interested in Kadarius Toney for sure. So I see more fruit at the receiver position than I do the running back. So we'll come back. We'll come back to this, and we'll talk about this as a group as a whole. And then there's a handful of tight ends that are interesting too. So if you need a spot start, if you have Mark Andrews and you need a guy here, I do have a list of names. So we'll get to some of these in depth in a little bit. I did want to cover the injuries real quick before we get rolling here. Should Parker be rostered if Watson gets moved? I think so. Same thing with Will Fuller. Watson already has played with Will Fuller. We know there's a connection there. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, probably some top ads this week if you can get them. And then Watson is a QB3 when healthy. I think it really depends on it. To me, what makes sense is the Carolina Panthers potentially moving on from Sam Darnold. They've shown to make some quick decisions at the quarterback spot. So I'm watching the Panthers. I'm watching the Dolphins here. These are likely the top two teams interested in here. I was kind of hoping Philadelphia would be in it, but I haven't seen anything on them. But let's get rolling here. We have some new injuries to monitor. Mahomes was knocked out of the game last week, but he was able to clear concussion protocol. They have him listed as questionable, but I'm assuming he's going to be good to go. They play on Monday night against the Giants. We've learned that Zach Wilson is out with a knee injury, 2 to 4 weeks. The team traded for Joe Flacco. So if you play in Superflex leagues, I suppose Joe Flacco could have some value for the next month or so, maybe 5-6 games out of Joe Flacco. Dak Prescott, he had the calf injury. He was in a walking boot last week, but it sounds like he's going to be just fine. We'll see if he can practice tomorrow. Miles Sanders, we're going to be watching his practice report all week. I'm assuming he's going to be more doubtful than questionable for week 8, which is why Kenneth Gainwell is probably the top running back ad this week. Josh Jacobs, the Raiders are on bye this week, but he left the game in week 7 with a chest contusion. It didn't sound serious at all, though, so the week of rest should be good for Josh Jacobs. The Dolphins put Malcolm Brown on IR, which is exciting for Myles Gaskin. And then Darren Waller, he missed the game last week with that ankle injury. They are on bye this week, but we'll be curious to see if he's practicing next week. Jonnu Smith has a shoulder injury right now. He's questionable for the weekend. And then Dawson Knocks. I know this happened last week, but he's going to be out for week 8 and probably week 9. I think they're expecting maybe a week 10 return here. And then there's a handful of other injuries here. So if you guys have any injuries on some of these players, we can get to that. But a ton of injuries to cover there. But let's get to some of the quarterbacks here. We know the Raiders and the Ravens are on bye this week. So if you have Lamar Jackson, you might need a replacement here. And if you've been playing streaming with Derek Carr, we'll have to find somebody here for you. So let me look at the questions real quick. Landry, Kirk, MVS, Tony, Parker, Galladay, Gallup. Who your favorite of that list? So that's kind of a tough question, because if you need someone just for this week, that's going to be a different answer versus if you need someone for the rest of the season. So the guy that I would probably be most interested in for the rest of the season, it's probably Michael Gallup or Kenny Galladay. I think those are some of the front runners for me here. Devontae Parker is a fun one too. Kadarius Toney has a lot of fun excitement here too. I think my favorite of this list is probably, there you go, rest of season. It's probably Kadarius Toney, man. Like, no one else on this list has shown the explosive excitement that Kadarius Toney has. So I think if I'm willing to put my chips on one player helping us the most, it's probably Kadarius Toney. Should I pick up Jerry Judy or Kenneth Gainwell? Non-PPR. My first reaction is Jerry Judy. He's a much better player than Kenneth Gainwell at this point. And I know, like, the reason to pick up a guy like Kenneth Gainwell is if you need a potential starting running back. If you have 2 or 3 guys already ahead of Kenneth Gainwell and you're not going to use him, I don't really see the value of it. But I think Jerry Judy, man, he's going to be a guy, especially against Washington this week. Jerry Judy is probably a player you're going to want as your wide receiver 3 the rest of the season. So to me, I'm going to lean Jerry Judy unless you have a really slim running back room, then it makes sense. But I'll lean with Jerry Judy here. Higbee or Schultz, start 1. This one's tough. This one is tough. I'm trying to remember who the Rams play. The Rams play Houston. I'm probably going to lean towards the Rams. I just want to look up. And see how the Texans are against tight end. They're giving up the 4th most points to the tight end spot here. The Cowboys going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are pretty stingy. They haven't allowed a touchdown to the tight ends yet, so I'm going to probably roll with Higbee. Good evening, Inceptivus. Hope you're doing well. Something leading me into Landry. Landry's interesting. What's nice about Landry is he's reliable. You know, we can put him out there, and it looks like Case Keenum. If it is Case Keenum was targeting him pretty frequently the other night here. So Landry, but he's kind of just a more high floor guy, or if you just want to make sure you're safe and comfortable with him in there, he's probably good for like 10 or so PPR points. Chuba Hubbard versus Falcons or Terry versus Denver this week, full PPR. I mean, I'm leaning towards just not messing with this and going with Terry McLaurin. If we look at the receiver numbers here, where is Denver? So Denver's, again, they're a tough team here. They have allowed 81 catches, 1,177 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So it's not like it's not terrible. I think I'm going to continue to roll with Terry. I think he's got just a much higher ceiling. I know Chuba has a good matchup against the Falcons. Let me see where the Falcons rank. Falcons giving up the 8th most running back points. I think I'd rather just continue to roll with Terry, though. You don't want to miss anything big out of Terry McLaurin. Would you be okay in flexing Schultz this week? I think so. And I know Harris plays a lot of non-PPR leagues. So when you're starting a guy like Schultz, you're hoping for a minimum, 60-some yards. That's enough points to make your floor at least. And he's a pretty good odds for a touchdown, I would say here. I know the Vikings haven't given up touchdowns yet to the tight end, but I do think Schultz is fine. I would be curious to see what your other options are at flex, but Schultz is a good option for a touchdown this week. But quarterbacks. We'll kind of be quick with this. Again, if you guys need a QB1 this week, Kirk Cousins against Dallas, that's at home. I do like Trevor Lawrence at Seattle here. Coming off a bye, we should see a little bit of improvement, I think, out of the Jaguars coming off their first win of the season here. I know it's a road game at Seattle, but Seattle's defense really hasn't been too impressive lately. Daniel Jones is an interesting one. At Kansas City, this one's Monday Night Football, but the reason I'm intrigued is look at the Chiefs. Giving up the 2nd most PPR points to the quarterback position here. They've allowed almost 2,000 passing yards in just 7 games, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks, 241 yards rushing, and 4 rushing touchdowns. So Daniel Jones, man, I wouldn't be surprised if he ran for a touchdown, maybe throws 1 or 2. It really depends on the health of Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney. So I like potentially waiting for Daniel Jones if he's going to get some of his receivers back. Jameis Winston against Tampa, I don't know. Taylor Heineke against Denver, interesting. But the guy to keep an eye on is Carson Wentz. He's been playing really, really well. He threw a touchdown, threw 2 touchdowns and ran for a touchdown last week in that monsoon against the 49ers here. So I think the Colts offense is kind of a sleeper right now. They're playing really well. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Mo Alley Cox. I kind of like how Carson Wentz is playing. And then Desean Watson, guys, he's only 16% rostered on ESPN League. So just check your waiver wires and see if he's out there. And then just some names to mention at the bottom here. Ryan Fitzpatrick, if you play in 2 QB leagues, he might be back in 3 or 4 weeks. Tyrod Taylor might be starting this week against the Rams. And then we'll see if Case Keenum gets another spot start here. And then I'm waiting to see if Joe Flacco or Mike White gets the start, but Joe Flacco's on the list here. Let me get back to some of the questions here. I'm just looking at healthy under the one game he's still. I mean, he's not going to put up 20 every now and he'll put up 20 every now and then. And it really depends on if it's Baker or Keenum. But I like Landry. He's got a high floor. Toney or Bateman rest of season. I'm still going to lean with Kadarius Toney. He's shown us more. I know Bateman's played in only 2 games, but Toney has showed us more. He's got more value in PPR leagues. And then just with the passing pie in Baltimore, when they get back, Sammy Watkins might be healthy, so that could potentially eat into Bateman's numbers. So I'm going to lean with Kadarius Toney. Do you think Nick Chubb is a top 10 running back this week after calf injury? It sounds like Nick Chubb is good to go. Let me pull up the numbers here. The Pittsburgh Steelers are ranking 24th against the running backs here. They've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown, but 575 rushing yards. That's a good amount. And then 250 receiving yards here. So I still like Nick Chubb. I think this week he'll be a fringe top 10. I don't feel like it's a lock, but he's going to be, top 10, top 15 in that range. So I would expect maybe running back 2 numbers, and then it really depends on how many PPR points he gets you. Zach Moss or Odell Beckham Jr. non-PPR rest of season. P.S. I have Landry. Probably Zach Moss. I think I'd rather fall, especially when you play non-PPR leagues. Like you want to fall into guys that get touchdowns, and Moss has shown us the ability to get touchdowns. It might seem a little untrustworthy, but I trust the Bills to score touchdowns more than I do Odell Beckham. So I'm going to roll with Zach Moss here. And like you said, you already got Landry. Should I roster Watson in an 8-team? I'm starting Burrow. Probably. It's probably worth it. It blocks other teams too. I'm sure there's a bunch of other good quarterbacks on the waiver wire, but in an 8-team league, it's probably, at least for the next week, give Watson a chance. If he's not traded in the next week, you can probably let him go, but I'm interested in Watson there. But let me get to some of the running backs. And this list, there's a handful of guys here that are probably already owned, whether it's Michael Carter, A.J. Dillon, Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert. Looks like that's his job right now over Damian Williams. If anyone lets Kenyon Drake go, he's an interesting guy. He's on bye this week, but Kenyon Drake continues to look decent in limited touches. J.D. McKissick needs to be rostered in PPR leagues. If anyone cut Tony Pollard over the bye week, I'm still interested in rostering him. He's a top 30 running back every week. Devin Singletary against Miami, that could be a potential fun spot here. And then Alex Collins against Jacksonville. I like that opportunity for him. And then we get to some handcuffs. Alexander Madison, if anyone dropped him during the bye week, Madison versus Dallas. We're not going to use Madison, but again, if anything happens to Cook, we know Madison equals RB1. Sony Michel, just a pure handcuff play. But they play Houston, so it wouldn't surprise me if he gets some run in the second half of that game. And Ronald Jones, he ran well against the Bears here. He's, again, just purely a handcuff to Leonard Fournette. David Johnson, he's showing enough in PPR leagues to roster at the end of your bench if you're desperate for a running back 2 in PPR leagues. I suppose David Johnson could be of use for you. But Kenneth Gainwell. And I don't want to forget to mention Boston Scott, who also had a rushing touchdown last week. He actually had the 1-yard touchdown run. So Gainwell and Boston Scott have some appeal this week. And consider, when Sanders was healthy, they were using Sanders and Gainwell. So it is a 2-back system. So if you miss on Gainwell, don't sleep on Boston Scott. He might have some value here. Devonta Freeman, I don't feel great about it. But Samaje Perine is the clear number 2 running back for Joe Mixon if he were to get hurt. Brandon Bolden popped off last week for a touchdown or so, but he's more of a desperation play. But the sneakiest guy on this list is going to be Salvin Ahmed. With Malcolm Brown going to the IR, that leaves Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmed as the top 2 running backs. Now, it's a really tough matchup against Buffalo this weekend. But again, last year we saw when Ahmed was healthy, in the running back one, he performed, and he's a pretty dang good back, or pretty good back. He's athletic, he can catch, he can block, and he's a pretty good runner too. So he's a guy probably just worth putting at the end of your bench. If anything happens to Gaskin, Ahmed would be the next man up. So those are the running backs that caught my eye this week. Let me get back onto some of these questions here. Should I pick up Watson and try to trade them away with Schultz? I think, I mean, at this point, this is the hottest week for Desean Watson. We know November 2nd is the trade deadline, and it sounds like if Watson is not moved before the trade deadline, like, he's not going to play this year. Like, the Texans just simply won't play him. He wants to be traded. He's not going to play for them. So I think for at least the next week, Watson is worth a hold. If you can trade him before he gets traded, that might look pretty good too. So for me, Watson is probably a guy it sucks because he's the guy that's got some serious allegations against him right now. I don't like it, but it's fantasy football, and if someone's going to pick him up, so it might as well be you at this point. And if you can trade him, that's great. But the wide receivers this week, this list is really juicy. I have about 5 receivers here that are almost 60% plus owned. Emanuel Sanders. So with the Dawson Knox injury, you're going to see more opportunity for Diggs, Sanders to score a touchdown. You're also going to see more opportunity for Cole Beasley. Beasley's kind of taken the step back this year because of Dawson Knox being more of a slot tight end. So Sanders, really good option if he's available in 8 or 10-man leagues. Jerry Judy should be rostered. Kenny Golladay, if anyone let go of him, he needs to be rostered. And then if anyone lets Hunter Renfrow go this week for the bye week, he's worth scooping up. Laviska Shenault, a lot of people are bailing ship on him. He's only 62% rostered. I think that should be higher. And then again, with the potential for Desean Watson to come to town, Devontae Parker could be a lot of fun. And even if they don't get Watson, I mean, Tua just threw 4 touchdowns last week and almost 300 yards, playing with basically just Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. So I think Parker has some value. Here's Cole Beasley, a guy that's 57.7% rostered in ESPN leagues. Probably going to be a decent PPR floor the next 2-3 games while Dawson Knox is out. Michael Gallup needs to be more rostered. He's on, I think they activated him already. He's going to start practicing probably tomorrow. And then Kadarius Toney, probably my favorite waiver wire ad on this list here. He's only about 44% rostered. And again, I know it's a small sample size, but from what we've seen of Kadarius Toney, when he's on the field, they're going to get him the ball. And then we come to Will Fuller here, again, just with the potential for Watson to be the quarterback. I know it's a tough game at Buffalo. I don't really care what he does this week. I'm just hoping that Will Fuller can get back healthy and maybe we find something there. We got a couple of Arizona Cardinals receivers, AJ Green and Christian Kirk. I don't know why their rostership is so low. These guys are currently wide receiver 3s right now, playing a banged up Green Bay secondary. I think they both could be wide receiver 3 flexes. Jamison Crowder, there's rumor that he could be traded before the deadline. So if he gets to a better situation, that could be nice for him. But for now, he's just a high floor PPR play. Rashad Bateman should be picked up. He had a nice game last week. And again, I'm waiting to see the health of Sammy Watkins before I trust Rashad Bateman. But it's looked good. The last 2 games have looked pretty good for Bateman. Nelson Aguilar, just a boom bust play. Again, Elijah Moore got the rushing touchdown. He also had 6 targets last week. They're trying to get him more involved in the offense. And I think a sneaky note here is with Joe Flacco potentially being the starting quarterback for the next month or so, that's going to probably boost the receiver values of Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, and here we go, Elijah Moore. So he's a sneaky ad here. Darius Slayton, Russell Gage, if you guys need some deeper bench help. Brian Edwards scored a touchdown last week, so he's interesting. And then we get to the deep sleepers. Van Jefferson caught a touchdown last weekend. He's at Houston this week. Khalif Raymond, he appears to have basically separated himself as the wide receiver 1 in Detroit. Kind of a shifty slot punt returner type guy. Going up against Philadelphia, that could be if you're desperate for a wide receiver 3 flex in PPR leagues, Khalif Raymond could be your guy. Alan Lazard here against Arizona. I'm actually going to have to cross him off the list because they just put him on the COVID-19 list today. So Adams and Lazard are out. That's going to leave Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is rumored to be activated from the IR list. So he's a deep play threat. If you want to roster MVS, I think that's worth it. And then Pettis, Tre'Quan Smith, whatever. But huge list of wide receivers here that we can look at. Do you think someone will pick up Sermon if I drop him? Someone probably will, but like you're waiting for an injury to Elijah Mitchell at this point. And then even then, Jermichael Hasty got more run. Sermon didn't even play. So I think at this point, Sermon is a safe drop. I'm not going to worry about it, especially if you can pick up somebody like if you can get Kenneth Gainwell for a guy like Sermon. I think you're moving towards the right direction. Would you consider Elijah Mitchell as a sell high, maybe a package deal with someone like Devonta Smith? Any buy low running backs you have in mind? So consider Elijah Mitchell as a sell high. Let me look at that 49ers schedule real quick. The problem with Elijah Moore and selling high is like he's the guy. Like when he's healthy, he's going to get the touches. They play the Bears this week. That's a good matchup. The Cardinals, a little bit tougher matchup here. Rams, another tough matchup. But they get the Jaguars, the Vikings, the Seahawks. I'm probably, just from what the coaching staff has shown us, and oh my God, look at the schedule here. So this is something to worth note here. 49ers, starting week 11 here, they get Jacksonville defense, the Vikings, the Seahawks, the Bengals, the Falcons, the Titans, and then they finish up week 17 for fantasy championships against the Texans. I'm probably going to hold on to Elijah Mitchell. Again, he ran for 100 yards, got the touchdown. He's kind of the clear guy for me. So as long as he's healthy, he's going to be the deal. So I'm probably going to hold on to him. As far as buy low candidates, I mean, I technically think you could potentially talk to the Elijah Mitchell person and see if you can get anybody for him. But let me pull up some numbers here. I just want to see. I mean, if you want to kick the tires on some guys here that have been disappointing so far to start the year and that have bye weeks coming up, guys like, well, Kareem Hunt is going to be back from IR soon. I think Antonio Gibson's been pretty disappointing so far, so his owner might be willing to sell him. Myles Gaskin might be worth a buy. Even Nick Chubb, who's been frustrating with that calf injury, he's worth a buy. I think Chase Edmonds, last week, he kind of overtook the running back one role again from James Conner. So some of these names in here, guys that have somewhat kind of disappointed the last couple of weeks, are worth looking into. I think Javonte Williams, he's probably the highest guy on my buy low list right now. I think Josh Jacobs is a guy that's continued to look really well. Let me see what else we got here. I like Zach Moss. I like Tony Pollard. These guys are pretty low to get. And then as far as anybody else, maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire could look nice on a buy low. David Montgomery on a buy low. Some of those names I think I would look into. I guess just the running backs. But I guess if you can flip Elijah Mitchell and Devonta Smith into something, like James Robinson or Dale Henderson, I think you should exercise that. If you can move Elijah Mitchell for anyone in here, anyone, kind of a top 15 back or so, I think I would do it. Just because it's hard to trust these 49ers running backs, but that schedule is absolutely exciting. Should I offer DJ Moore and Darrell Williams for DK? Yes, you should. Russell Wilson sounds like he's going to be back week 10. I know the season it feels lost for Seattle, but if they can steal a win or two before Russ comes back, they're going to be in good shape. So it's worth a try. What running back do you think is a good long-term running back? 3 to pick up. I mean, some of my favorites, I mean, you're probably looking down in this range, but Tony Pollard, man, if anyone let go of Tony Pollard during the bye week, he's a very productive runner. And we've seen him, consistently get, 10 plus touches per game. So I like Tony Pollard as a running back 3. I like Zach Moss. I like Kenneth Gainwell. Michael Carter, if he's available. If you're looking for guys to pick up, though, let me just pull up my list. So Harris plays in more non-PPR stuff. I mean, you're probably trying to roster some handcuff type situations. So, I mean, if Singletary, if Madison was let go, if Sony Michel was let go, we know Darrell Henderson gets banged up every now and then. Again, I'm interested in Gainwell. Here's another handcuff that looks good, Samaje Perine. So you might be trying to just pick up. And again, I play this game a lot where before the games kick off on Sunday or Thursday night or whatever, sometimes I just look at a team and I'm like, okay, I know that this is the clear handcuff. If that player gets hurt, I'm ahead on the waiver wire. So I'm more so looking for running backs that are the clear backup to their starter, or running backs like Tony Pollard who are going to get touches that could be flex worthy. So I hope that helps. But I want to cover the tight ends real quick. So It depends on what size league you play, but here I have the list of tight ends that need to be owned. If any of these guys are available, they are worth picking up for sure. If anyone drops Dawson Knocks over the next week or two, he's worth a hold. He's probably going to be put labeled as an O, so you can slide him to the IR spot. But for guys that have a chance to be available in your leagues, Zach Ertz against Green Bay, his rostership has shot up the last couple games, 64% rostered here. Robert Tonyan had the big game of the season for him last week here, and with Devontae and Allen Lazard both out on Thursday Night Football, perhaps Robert Tonyan has a little bit more volume in this one. I don't get why people are dropping Logan Thomas. I know Ricky Seals-Jones has looked good, and Ricky Seals is going to be the starter this week at Denver. So if you need someone to just use this week, Ricky Seals-Jones is still the guy. But Logan Thomas is probably coming back for week 9. He's worth a spot if you need a tight end. Jared Cook going up against New England, worth a spot start here. But the guys that stuck out to me, you could use Evan Ingram against Kansas City on Monday Night Football here. You could use Cole Kmet, who his last 2 games, Cole Kmet has registered about 9 PPR points going up against the 49ers, who just allowed Mo Ali Cox to score a touchdown. Speaking of Mo Ali Cox, going up against Tennessee, that's a good spot start there. Again, I've talked about liking Carson Wentz this week. And then Tyler Conklin, just because that Dallas-Minnesota game might be on the fast track. We expect Dallas to score points. We would expect Minnesota to have to play keep up, or maybe Minnesota is the one scoring the points and Dallas has to keep up. So Conklin, an interesting deep tight end 1 option. But CJ Uzomah, going up against the Jets, they allow a good amount of tight end points. He looks like a fun start here. And then as a desperation play, maybe Gerald Everett versus Jacksonville. Should I pick up Robert Tonyan or Rob Gronkowski this week, non-PPR? So they're both really good ads. I think Rob Gronkowski should be rostered, man. That's the biggest game breaker. And we know that when Gronk is healthy, it's probably going to be a touchdown or something. So I think Gronk is probably the play here. I know he's not we don't know if he's going to play quite yet, but for now, I think I would bet on Gronkowski playing. He was supposed to play last week, but it didn't happen. I think it's Gronk. And then I don't mind Tonyan as the consolation. Let's see. So your running backs are Eckler, Henderson, Chubb, Hubbard, Mitchell, Sanders, and Michelle. Okay, so every week you're rolling out Eckler, probably Chubb, and then you got Henderson, Hubbard. So it's I see now. It's difficult for you to get Elijah Mitchell in the lineup right now. And then you have Michelle as the handcuff to Henderson. So you're kind of locked in there with Eckler, Henderson, and Chubb as your guys. I suppose if you can move Elijah Mitchell and Devonta Smith for like a top 10, top 15 running back, I think I'm okay with this. Go ahead and talk to so I'm interested in Antonio Gibson because the owners might be frustrated in his production. But they have a bye week next week. He should be getting healthier. He's a fun player to potentially look at, and he's got a higher price name tag. But if you can get, James Robinson, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, I'm sure some of these guys are tough to get up here. Go talk to the Swift owner. But it's worth talking to anybody here in the top 15, see if you can cash in. But otherwise, I don't mind holding on to Elijah Mitchell. Maybe try sell. You can try and sell Devonta Smith straight up and see if you can swap him. Or something like that. Do you think I could trade away Antonio Brown for Mark Andrews? That seems, if the guy who has Mark Andrews has another viable tight end, it's worth a try. And especially if his receivers are weak, I think it's a good option there. So Antonio Brown, we know that when AB plays, he's kind of all over the board sometimes, but he's been a really reliable receiver for Tom Brady. So I think that could be attractive. And especially if the Mark Andrews owner already has a good backup tight end, he might be willing to get rid of it. So worth a try. I would say go for it. But anyways, we just kind of went over the tight ends. I want to look at the defenses real quick. So these are the top defenses owned here. Tampa Bay, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Buffalo Bills. Pretty good start this week. The Patriots, the Ravens are on bye. The Saints, the Broncos, the Panthers, the Steelers, the Colts, and the Browns. These are the top 10 or 12 owned on ESPN here. So we're looking at teams that are less than about 60% rostered here. So my favorite spot starts of the week. Going to go with the Bengals at the New York Jets. I don't care if it's Mike White or Joe Flacco. I don't expect the Jets to put up a ton of points, especially if it's Flacco in his first week with the team. I don't see that being super high scoring there. I do like the Chiefs to bounce back against the Giants. I know I've said good things about Daniel Jones and whatnot here, but I could see Daniel Jones having a turnover or two and the Chiefs decapitalizing. So they're kind of a sneakier one. Maybe the Seahawks at home against Jacksonville. I mean, they just held the Saints defense or the Saints offense to a pretty low score. Perhaps the Eagles at Detroit should be a team that you can look at. And then a sneaky one is the Chargers at home against the Patriots, fresh off of a bye week. So the Chargers have my interest there. Let me see what else we got. Pick 2 to drop. Christian Kirk, Landry Sermon, Alex Collins. I think for sure it's Trey Sermon. We're going to get rid of Sermon here. What did Alex Collins do the other night? Where are we? So Collins still had 16 carries last night. I mean, Collins has value this weekend against the Jaguars. So if you're dropping 2 guys, and this one's tough, Harris. I'm dropping Sermon for sure, but I think Kirk, Landry, and Collins are probably guys worth holding on to. Can you tell me the rest of your roster here? If Christian Kirk and Landry are like your wide receivers 5 or 6 or something, I think maybe we can move on from them. But for sure, Sermon, and I want to see more info. And then Inceptivus, his receivers are Jefferson, Deontay, Terry, Devonta Smith, Jerry, Judy. Any possible upgrades at receiver? So you're rolling out Jefferson, Deontay, and Terry, trying to make room for Jerry Judy. Okay, got it. Let's go look at the wide receivers here. Any possible upgrades at receivers? I mean, you could potentially, try to do a 2-for-1 situation. You could pair Devonta with Jerry Judy. And again, I love Jerry Judy. He's one of my favorite receivers. I drafted him on a lot of teams this year. But his excitement, coming back off IR, you might be able to sell kind of high off that. Whereas Devonta Smith plus Judy might be able to yield you a pretty fun receiver, whether that's a guy like Amari Cooper or Chris Godwin or something like that. So guys to potentially buy low on for wide receivers. Tyler Lockett's been frustrating, but again, Russell Wilson's coming back. I think Amari Cooper is a buy low. With potentially, again, with Joe Flacco in town, Corey Davis is probably a buy low option for me. Jalen Waddle, I think, is he's kind of a buy high right now, but I love what Waddle's putting down. Other buy lows, maybe Adam Thielen. You already got Jefferson though. Talk to the Mike Williams owner. It depends on where Cordero Patterson is in your league, but I am actively, if you guys can, I'm actively trying to go get Cordero Patterson in any league that I can. If that owner is thinking they're trying to sell high on him, like you should buy high on Cordero Patterson right now. He dominated the backfield last week and he's running a lot of routes. So Cordero Patterson, man, that one would be a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of anything else here that would be potential upgrade here. I like the Chase Claypool usage. He's a buy low here. If someone's trying to sell AJ Brown, I'm trying to buy for sure. I mean, if you can flip Devonta and Jerry Judy for AJ Brown, I think that'd be sick. Something like that. Go buy Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's only got 1 touchdown on the season so far. He caught 8 last year. I know Mike Williams has been a beast, but Keenan Allen probably a good buy low for full PPR leagues. Other wide receivers are Waddle, Pittman, Lockett, and Lamb. So Harris has 1, 2, 3, 4 solid receivers over him. Okay. So because you play in a non-PPR format usually, Harris, I'm probably going to keep Christian Kirk. Landry's more of a PPR guy where Kirk has been scoring touchdowns. So I think, man, your running backs, I don't remember who your running backs were. I'm looking here. I'm probably going to let Jarvis Landry go. I think I'd rather the Christian Kirk part. I love the Lazard pickup to the COVID news. Yes. Yeah, Lazard was a hot pickup this week until the news. But I do think like for the Packers, man, like if you have Aaron Jones, you're going to see probably 20 plus touches for Aaron Jones. I think you might also see AJ Dillon get some workload. So if someone, spike drops AJ Dillon for his fumble last week, A.J. Dillon should be rostered in 10 and 12-man leagues. So there's a lot of options out there if you guys need it. But any other final questions before I get out of here for tonight? Again, you guys can check out the full waiver wire report here. Probably starting tomorrow morning, I'm going to start uploading my my week 8 start sits. We'll get into that. I was kind of just waiting for more news to get started on them. It seems like week 8's a logjam of player news. So we'll get some things in there. Check out the fantasy points allowed. I have that link on here too. Just looking at, the top defenses and what they allow. But anyways, I'm probably going to get out of here in just a second. Let me see what that last comment was. Let's take a peek real quick here. Is that true? Is that true? Aaron Jones? I feel like he's gotten that before. I will not take any Aaron Jones slander on this show. Dude, Aaron Jones has had tons of opportunities, man. Aaron Jones has gotten over 15 touches in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 7 games. So Aaron Jones will get his touches, probably over 20 this week. Pick one to pick up: Thomas, Corey Davis, Michael Gallup, or Odell Beckham. The guy with the most excitement and the most buzz is probably Michael Thomas. Gallup is nice, but he's kind of going to be an inconsistent wide receiver 3. Corey Davis is kind of a fun consolation, but I think Michael Thomas has the greatest ceiling, so it's probably worth stashing Michael Thomas there. If I have Pitts, I have Pitts. Would you view him as a top 4 tight end the rest of the season? My backup is Dawson Knocks, Goddard on the waiver wire. Keep or drop Knox for him. Whew. Kyle Pitts might be a top 3 tight end. You might be a top 2, top 3 tight end the rest of the way Matt Ryan's throwing in the ball. So I love Kyle Pitts. I think that's to me, I mean, I'm really only taking Travis Kelce over Kyle Pitts right now. I know Andrews has played well, but he's inconsistent sometimes. If Kyle Pitts continuously, if he can start stringing together the games, Kyle Pitts does have top 2, top 3 opportunities there for you. So my backup is Dawson Knox, and Goddard is on the waiver wire. This is tough because Knox needs to be rostered, and so does Dallas Goedert. So if you have to drop a tight end for him, I think I'm fine with that. Knox, again, even when he comes back, he's probably going to be inconsistent, whereas Goddard's getting all the snaps here. So I think I'm okay with it. Goddard should be picked up. Go ahead and drop Knox. Yeah, Michael Thomas. Oh, Aiden, this is such a bad take, Aiden. I'm not going to take any Aaron Jones slandered. You don't draft Aaron Jones expecting him to rush the ball 17, 20 times per game. You draft Aaron Jones hoping for 15 carries and 4 to 5 catches. That's we're talking elite. Aaron Jones is getting elite opportunity share in this Packers offense, and I don't care about A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon's helping him with those snaps. A.J. Dillon is keeping Aaron Jones fresh. If A.J. Dillon is not there helping keep Aaron Jones fresh, we're looking at a potential disaster. Aaron Jones maybe getting ran out. So I love the usage for Aaron Jones. Keep doing what they're doing. They're doing perfect. And his bad game last week was 9 PPR points. He'll take that as a bad game. Touchdowns are coming. And yeah, Hunter Henry, 4 touchdowns in a row. We'll see if he can keep that going. The Chargers are first of all, it's a revenge game, having played for the Chargers his career. But Hunter Henry, easy matchup against the Chargers. They allow tight end points. So thank you guys for hanging out. I'm going to get out of here. We'll see you. I'll be doing a live basketball show tomorrow night, but Thursday night we'll do start sits, Packers, Cardinals. I'm excited about it. So thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your night. We'll see you guys later. Peace.